Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Enjoy your
extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another?
Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please
What?
come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
Come
trouble.
on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning, how to do everything website, all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Hello, good morning, America. Wakey, wakey. It's 4 o'clock in the morning over there, and in London it's 11 o'clock. So, but I'm gathering that across the states over there it all changes. So I'm probably just speaking to a tiny part of Texas or something. But it's 11 o'clock in Great Britain. I'm in London, 20 minutes from Buckingham Palace, and just going to bring you a show today about Mr. Stephen Greer. So that's Dr. Stephen Greer, and he's a UFO expert who I went to see 2 weeks ago when he was in London, and I decided to show about him. So that's what today's show is about. I have with me a guest, Mr. Miles Johnston, and he's a UFO expert for Channel 4. And also he runs a series called Bases, which interviews experiencers, which is a very good series which you can get on YouTube, on his channel on YouTube. So I have him with me. He's going to be on in about 5 minutes. I'm just going to introduce myself. My name's Christine Joanna Hart. I'm a Sunday Times bestselling author with my first book published by Hodder and Stoughton, Searching for Daddy. My second book was published by Random House, In for the Kill, a true story of hunting evil. And I have various books that I've self-published, but I won't go into them. You can look them out. One of them is about the phone hacking. Today, I want to talk about Stephen Greer because I had a strange experience when I went to see him. I'm a journalist. I'm ex-News of the World. I was there for 10 years. Then I worked for The Sun for 6 years. Then I went on to work for the Sunday Times in Ireland for 3 years. I've now got my own agency, Warner News Agency. I try and investigate stories myself and then offer them up to the various newspapers that I work for, such as The Guardian and The Times at the moment. I went to interview Dr. Stephen Greer for the Daily Mail. They were interested, so they commissioned me to go along. I was given a free seat for his talk, which was in Cavendish Square in London. And it was very late. I went along. He showed various various letters from the Ministry of Defence to say that he'd been accepted by them and he was being taken seriously. I had followed Greer for about 10 years, maybe more, and I did find his disclosure group just fascinating and brilliant because he brought out all these military people who talked about shooting greys in underground bases and the reality of what we call aliens. And I really admired his work. And so I was interested to meet him. Anyway, I sat there and he didn't really talk much about ET, which I wanted him to. And I went up and had a few words with his wife. I said to her, how does he know that these ET are benevolent? And she said to me, well, they would have destroyed us by now if they weren't benevolent. And so I thought that was a little bit odd. But she said, oh, they've got so much fantastic technology. They're more advanced, blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, how do you know they're not fallen angels? And she sort of laughed at me, more or less. Anyway, I went back downstairs to the lecture and he was then talking about his efforts to contact ET himself. I thought that was quite new, as I didn't think Greer was doing that. I didn't think he was, getting into the sort of field of trying to channel what he calls ET. I didn't think he was doing that, but he has. He's changed. He used to wear a smart suit, looked like a typical smart American, but now he had a white, really tight white t-shirt, very muscle bound, really extremely tight jeans, and he looked a lot younger. He said how he goes out to these crop circles and basically tries to have rituals to cool down ET. And then it went on for a couple of hours, and then he had this noise that he said was ET recorded, and he said, I'll play it to you now. And he dimmed the lights and he played the noise. I found it incredibly unpleasant. It resonated all the way through me, and it almost felt as if it went to cling on my chest and then sort of more or less lasso me all the way around my chest and then sort of go back again for the sort of central point in my chest. It really felt horrible, and I wanted to get up and leave, but I couldn't. I just didn't have the energy. It was just really unpleasant. I thought, I don't like this. I want to get out, but I didn't. I just thought, well, it's going to end soon. It didn't. It went on quite a long time. Then when it was finished, I went up and I spoke to Dr. Greer about, what ET actually were and did he know they were safe, because he has brought out this telephone app where it encourages people that listen to it. It basically, you use it to call up these ET, and he is given the instruction that you must move out the way and let them come inside you and basically, come inside you and take over your body, more or less. He said that this is the way we should let them roll, and basically this then starts a revolution from within where we can advance our race. So I thought that was funny. I said to him, how do you know that they're not demons? Demons and fallen angels are quite more advanced than we are. They can do amazing stuff, and that doesn't mean we should let them take us over. And he laughed at me. He said, you should be discerning. I have studied evil since I was 16, and I grew up in an orphanage which was run by the Catholic Church, and it was rammed into me that I was evil because I was born out of wedlock. My mother was a teenager, and I was told I was evil. So I went on the path of investigating evil. I spent all my life investigating it. I've met Ian Brady, the Moors murderer. I have met the Hillside Strangler, Kenneth Bianchi, and all these evil. I've also got to know Jeremy Bamber, and all these evil people. They have at one time let something take them over. They've always been outsiders as children. They always got into the occult or Ouija boards, and they have always moved out the way and let something come inside them. Next thing, they're out killing and they're in prison and everyone's calling them evil and they don't really know what has gone on. They're not usually honest about this because they don't want to be. All of a sudden, they've got this massive fame as Hannibal Lecter characters. So that's what they push forward, and nobody gets to find out the truth except for a few people that go in and prod them and do find out and get to talk about them. I'm one of those people. But my book, In for the Kill, it wasn't a bestseller, unlike Searching for Daddy, because everybody wants the party line of, oh, they're really evil and they're Satan himself and we've got evil on lockdown. And, you know, they don't like to see that evil actually really isn't on lockdown. It's out there and it's coming for us. And it's getting darker and darker. And this new revolution of let's move out the way and let them come inside is quite frightening. And also I've noticed my son, who's 11 years old, is reading books. One of them is by an author called Darren Shan, S-H-A-N, and these are basically, Shan is basically a Satanist, although most people wouldn't know that or wouldn't see it. I can see it. In the books, they're full. These are set by the school, and when I complained to my son's school, I was told, no, he's a best-selling author. These books are really good, and we read them to all 11-year-olds, and we have done for the past 3 or 4 years. And basically, they have to read them, they have to study them, and they're disgusting. Basically, they're full of blood and gore. There's one called Cirque du Freak, where limbs are cut off and the blood sprays over the people. This guy then takes a spider. The spider clings on his mouth and pushes his body in and out of the mouth. I hope all of you get that, the connotations of that. And then the young boy and the 50-year-old man, basically the 50-year-old man sucks the young boy's hand. Again, you've got the in and out movements with the poor young boy's hand. This is all painted in a positive light. And then the young boy is encouraged to become a what Shan calls a demon, and to move out of the way, let this come inside him. And then he discovers that not only has he got psychic powers, which is fantastic, he wants to kill his family, which indeed does happen when you bring these demons inside you, such in the case of Bianchi and Brady, and also Jeremy Bamber, who shot his whole family. Not written about by the mainstream press, of course, which I was a strong part of. So what happens then in the Cirque du Freak book, the young boy decides he wants to die because his family are boring, and after all, he wants to kill them. So he lets himself be buried alive. This is all sucked up by 11-year-olds, buried alive, but, you know, he enjoys it in his coffin underneath the earth, which I would say would bring on panic attacks when read to children, but never mind. And then it goes on that then his spirit rises and he climbs on the back of the older middle-aged man, and flies off into the night. Then we go into Darren Shan's second book for children, and you've got that in the 2 chapters at the end. It gives a delightful version. He becomes a serial killer with the older man, and they come across a poor man walking down the street and they attack him, and blood everywhere, lots of sucking and drinking. This is disgusting. So Miles, I'm going to, instead of ranting on, I'm going to bring you in now. Would you like to talk about this? So I'm not sure how to bring you in. Laura will have to do that.
Hello.
Oh, hi. There you are, Miles. What have you got to say about what I've been talking about?
Well, people must understand the background to Greer is initially very positive, and he did come to the crop circles for many years and did an awful lot of what they call CE5s. But something happened, I think, in the late 1990s. And see, people have also got to understand that the crop circle area is full of dimensional portals. There are which the military use. They're also very close by very major bases where for 30, 40, 50 years they've been making strange-looking humans. A lot of the aliens are sort of made by us using transgenics, transhumanization, cyborgization technologies, ET exchange technologies. People also got to understand that the British here have declared they've actually declared the ET things real. That Roswell was a technology exchange program with Trojan technology, which is a backdoor into our entire artificial intelligence structures which we're constructing now. But really, what Greer was doing was absolute demonic. I mean, to tell people to accept any kind of entity into your body and give your permissions away. It's the one thing that we have in our defense is the ability to deny an entity to gain entry. But when you say yes, do come in, you've let the door open, and it's an absolutely unforgivable thing for him to have done that. Plus, playing that noise, that is like a brain code technical device to circumvent all the body's and the mind's natural decoding and defensive mechanisms to get things into people's brains, into people's minds and psyche.
Yeah,
some kind of
interestingly,
parasite.
Interestingly, Miles, when I got home, I went to sleep, and I have had some weird phenomena, specifically with Kenneth Bianchi. When I upset him, I got these weird images come up in my mind. I felt as if someone was trying to remote view me, as if someone was trying to push me out the way and look out of my eyes. It was only a fraction of a second, but with that, because I had it downstairs in the living room, I rushed upstairs, laid on the bed and thought, oh my God. And then I had really horrible, ugly images of pornography and violence, but that weren't mine. And basically, in the end, I had to pray. When I prayed around it, they went. And I didn't have that for a long time. I had that when I interviewed Colonel Michael Aquino, the same thing. And that was a long time ago. And it was only after coming home from Greer, I laid on the bed. I heard that noise again in my ears. I felt the pressure on my chest, and I got those same images. And literally my dreams, they were terrifying. It was just like someone had hijacked my mind, And I was really, really scared the next day. And again, I went to the church. I prayed. That's my... that's about the only defense against it, because I do believe that it is demonic. I mean, I don't know if you share that view, Miles. Go on.
I mean, this is one of the biggest things that's happening is what's called the targeted individual phenomena. And most targeted individual groups, there's UCASH in Europe and there's StopEgg in Europe, and they're actually I think they held a conference in Berlin last weekend. Now, the thing is that they do not want to have anything to do with the UFO nut jobs and all that. They just won't accept them into their environment. They're so traumatized, these people. But this kind of thing that we've just discussed is straight out of the targeted individual's repertoire. It's synthetic telepathy, mind invasion using some fairly nasty technologies, total abuse of the integrity of people's private mind space, and it's absolutely unforgivable. And that book you're talking about at school is a classic indication that the relevant authorities, including the broadcast authorities, the kind of stuff, the kind of subliminals, very nasty little catches which are being put into popular music, the whole popular music merry-go-round is totally taken over by these insidiously evil creatures which have infested and taken over the higher realms of society and the powers that be. And this is, I mean, you also talked about James Casbolt. That was one of the things which put him over the edge. That's why he's in jail now, because the kind of things that he witnessed going on with the elite. I mean, mean, I've just interviewed Stuart Sverdlow, and he was explaining, again, Max Spears and James Casbolt, these are sort of English side of the super soldiers, were explaining the need for particular enzymes and particular chemicals produced in children's brains in the pineal gland when they're traumatized and put through a ritual slaughtering, so they can extract these chemicals, which are only produced in states of extreme terror and fear, so they can then use them as some kind of drug, or as Max explained, and James explained, it's like they have a vampiric type virus. If they don't get the essence of the life force from our children, which is why, if this whole thing, the whole point is to get this life force so these creatures can regenerate themselves and sustain themselves for the thousands of years that they live. Which is why this idea that, well, if they're hostile, they would have destroyed us by now. They are farming off us. That's the point. Oh. So they don't need us dead. What they do need us is in a compliant state of, basically as we would farm animals.
Exactly. And I think if children are reading this, I mean, I read the Shan thing, and I don't know what it was. I saw my son had a reading list, and there was loads of books. I looked through it and I homed in on that book, and something told me to read it. I ordered it from the library and I was reading it. My son said, "Oh, we're reading that in class." And I'm like, "You're kidding?" I said, "I was just about to complain about this." It is absolutely, it's pure Satanism, pure selling the Bible of Satanism, and just, it's vile. And the images in there will traumatize. You know, there was a woman standing on stage, and all of a sudden a wolf comes out, bites her limbs off, the hand falls down, and the blood spurts all over the kids and all over the audience. I mean, even that, taking out the occult side, taking out the Satanism, taking out the sexual activity with the older man, and encouraging children to be serial killers, more or less, because it's sexy and it's like a vampire, and you don't want to be with your boring family anyway. I mean, what a disgusting message that teachers are reading to children. Whatever happened with cider with Rosie, for God's sake. And according to the head of English, it's what, it encouraged them to read. Well, it's like saying, oh, well, we want them to watch TV, we're going to put a porn film on, that'll get them watching it. I mean, it's disgusting. Even just the blood spraying everywhere. I read it, I felt sick for ages afterwards. And, the image stuck in my head. It's in my head now. I can see it really clearly. The guy's he's a very, very good writer, and that gives them post-traumatic stress disorder, and of course that makes them more compliant, doesn't it, because they're disorientated. Actually, when I posted about it on my Facebook page, somebody said to me that it's a young guy, when he was at school, they read a lot of Shakespeare, a lot of Macbeth, and they made them watch a film of Macbeth where about 3 or 4 murders went on, and he said all the kids felt weirded out, and they felt spaced out and weirded out for a good few weeks after. So that's using that's the same technique, isn't it, Miles?
Yes, I mean, essentially, it's very clear that the way things are developing, that the powers that be have been compromised. This is something which, I run this thing called the Basis Project. And one of the people I interviewed was a very perceptive individual called Chris Thomas, who had basically been hardwired into the Akashic. And one of the things he describes is a race of beings which are just on the edge of the solar system, and a few of them have managed to get through because the solar system had its own sort of natural defense mechanisms. And this is a thing I recorded 8 years ago. Now, this guy's picked all this up by his own intuition and by his ability to, as I say, access the Akashic. That these creatures were able to take over the highest of the elites. In other words, if you're going to take over a civilization, you don't necessarily go for the king or the prime minister, because they essentially are only temporary. What you go after is those who know the ancient secrets of that civilization, i.e. the Illuminati, which again is a term which is outdated, but for the basic point of illustration, the elite, this group of beings, which encompasses a number of sub-ET species, took over the highest of the elite by bringing them to a process of virtual death, and at the point where that being is virtually about to die, they're able to switch off the sort of silver cord that brings that soul to wherever we come from, and switch it over to their type of energetic cord. Because in the physical dimensions that we live in, our physical bodies are what you use to live here. So you have to take over the body in order to take control here in the physical domain. It's because of the basic structure of what's called a biogenic field. The Earth has got a massive biogenic field, which allows physical beings to live in a physical world. And the soul, or whatever you want to call it, people have different names for it. Is the difference between you being alive or dead? Well, what's happened is that these beings have essentially taken over upper levels of the elite, and they look just like us. So you don't know that you're dealing with a complete entity. But one of the symptoms of things going wrong is the way that people are deforming themselves with tattoos. Well, that's going on probably to a different point. But what happens is, the mechanism is that a human being can be taken through this process, and then some other being takes over.
Interesting.
Sorry, I muted my mic there. So that is what seems to have happened with Greer. But the fact that he's promoting this and promoting that other people should do the same thing does seem that there's some kind of demonic or ET, very toxic ET influence, which is wishing to propagate and have us give up our bodies in this world. It's invasion into this reality and using us. In other words, the ETs look just like us because they're inside. They're what's called a skinwalker. And that is, I think, a colleague that we mutually know did send you an image, Chris, about that. And that was that basic point. And the Native Americans are aware of this basic process, and they're aware of the ancient ETs and all sorts of things. And we're dealing with a very complicated issue here involving different races, some of them good, some of them bad, some of them rogue. And essentially what's happening now is that the current rulers of the manor, so to speak, are having a bit of a property problem, in that these other creatures are trying to break in. And this is what Chris Thomas mentioned, that the use of the Hadron Colliders and these massive accelerators are being used as a mechanism to breach the protective mechanisms in our solar system, so these other creatures can come through en masse. Now, the thing is that Simon Parkes has just come up with this, Stuart Swerdlow's come up with the same thing. So there's a common theme here.
We're going to go to break now. We'll see you after the break, Miles, if you can stay. Hopefully you can.
Yeah.
Yes, hi, back again. Wow, that was long. I'd just like to remind everyone that between now and the 20th of October, US donors only, any $50 donation received during the live confines of my show that says Silver Rush and includes my name will receive a 1 ounce bar of silver. Donors need to include their postal address details in the notes section upon donation. Any $75 donation received during the live confines of my show that says ball cap includes my name will receive a Revolution Radio ball cap. Donors need to include their name and address. If anybody wants to donate to keep me on air, my PayPal account is warnernews@sky.com. That's Warner as in Warner Brothers, warnernews@sky.com. Thank you. Yes, back over to you, Miles Johnston. I thought that I find it interesting that when you get this kind of attack that I got from Greer, not personally from him, obviously, for something connected with the noise, that if you pray, it seems to stop, but you have to pray seriously. You can't, why do you think that is, Miles?
Well, it's very important what you've said. The other thing is that Solaris Blue Raven, I know as well, and she's able to fight back on this stuff. You've got to understand that if you bring your own boundaries back, you've got the rights, you've got your chance. It's you. If you enforce what you are, you can push all this rubbish out of your head and back to whoever sends it. You can return to sender. Okay, so that's what you can do when you pray. Praying. We live in a beautiful and wonderful universe, and really, I think what's going on is the lower realms, the realms which have emerged in their particular pathway into the creation of life itself, are simply pushing up into our domain. That doesn't make them bad or evil. They're simply coming into our domain, and it's up to us to go into where our natural evolution should take us, into a higher realm of spiritual existence and a higher, more positive environment. So we become the ascended masters, and then the other beings which are coming in simply start to evolve and in their pathway in the domain that we're in, and that's part of the whole ascension process.
Yeah, I was reading some guy, God, I can't remember who his name was. I'll think of it soon. He was saying about the ascension energy. I'm not too sure I know that much about it, but something happened on the 27th of September, he was saying, and he gave a really interesting talk about it, about how you would just kind of experience your consciousness would widen somewhat. I did feel something myself. I go to Kew Gardens nearly every day, and I walk there, and I walk amongst the trees, and I touch the trees, and I really felt the Christ energy sort of coming alive inside those things, and I really felt the reality of the fact that we've got a father, so, and I'd never felt that before, and I don't know if that was linked to the ascension energy. What do you think?
Well, this is what's happening. We are ascending it. We have the opportunities to see. We already had all this a long time ago. I mean, we had telepathy. We had, I think 8 senses or 16 senses. And something arrived here which, pursued all the higher perceptive people on the planet everywhere, and just pursued them, hunted them down, and killed them, and destroyed everything. I mean, it was the wise men of the village, and then it was the wise women, and that's why the feminine principle was destroyed, and all this sort of stuff. So, I mean, we have done this before. So something arrived which massively dropped our higher spirituality and consciousness. And whether that ended up in the wars of Lemuria and Atlantis, or the destruction of the Mars colonies, and I mean, I went to have a cup of coffee in a little restaurant in the crop circle area here in Woodbridge, in Woodborough rather, and they were training a new girl up to do this. It's a very nice little coffee shop, just in sight of the White Horse here in Wiltshire, where I'm speaking from, where there's all these wonderful crop circles have happened in the years in the past, where there are also all these portals and gates. And she's been studying these indigo children, these higher children, and there's a massive attack through education and through media to try and shut these kids down, so they don't know, but they do know, and they're coming through, and we've got to help these kids. This is our next generation, because we face a cyborg future if we don't.
I've noticed that these days they don't do much around the imagination. My son's got a really strong imagination, and I thought, well, great, once he starts writing essays. He has not written one imaginative essay apart from what he does at home. They don't set them, they don't want to strengthen.
This is absolutely the whole point. It's a Prussian education system. It was exported from Prussia. And another person I've interviewed, Cara St. Louis, with her co-author Harold Kautz-Vela, have written this brilliant book called A Dangerous Imagination, Silent Assimilation. Now, that is the whole point. I mean, Marie Kayali's daughter, the late Marie Kayali's murdered daughter, she's one of another Basis Project interviewees and witnesses. Her daughter Marie was hauled into school here in London, in England, and it was explained to her, your daughter is going to go nowhere. She's bad news. And the crime that her daughter had done was that they were asked to paint a tree. Okay? So she painted a tree and she put an apple on it. Right? And this was a crime. So the headmistress of the school hauled in her mother and explained she was told to paint a tree, not to add an apple on it, which showed that she had imagination, she had creativity. So this very fundamental, brilliant spark of youth and genius was now labeled as a troublemaker for life and eventually murdered by the authorities, and because she had this dangerous imagination. And this is what we've got to stand up for. We've got to stand up for creativity. We've got to stand up for imagination. This is the spark of the wonders of life. But what's happening is we're being corralled into a compliant cyborg society where we are completely monitored and spied on by an artificial intelligence, which, based on what we now know about what happened in Roswell and other ET exchanges, was that we were donated technology just while we were developing it ourselves, which steered us away from our own version of computer systems onto a hackable backdoor Trojan computer technology, which we are now handing over control of our entire lives, our security, our financial system, everything we can think of is being handed over to this computer technology, which is a Trojan horse. It's a backdoor entry to take over our society. We're handing over complete control. I mean, we started off this conversation about Stephen Greer saying, oh, hand over complete control of your body. Well, we're handing over complete control of the entire planet. And 90% of these politicians and other idiots have no idea what this stuff actually is. In fact, a lot of the scientific community have no idea what they're actually dealing with. They're dealing with the Trojan horse technology because we have only been told recently that this stuff was a donation from an off-world or outer-dimensional group of beings, which said, here, have this stuff. And it's now transpiring that the whole ET interface with business and with private enterprise and private individuals, there's massive deals going on between all different sorts of people with different types of races all over the place. The whole thing's a bloody mess. But what's absolutely clear is that you got one bunch of deceiving, selfish, psychopathic pillocks doing deals with the alien equivalent or the demonic equivalent of a bunch of psychopathic, evil, self-serving, conniving, backstabbing, duplicitous pillocks. Want of a decent word. So we've got a whole situation here where a bunch of conniving slime balls are backstabbing and slitting each other's throat. Meanwhile, we are in the middle. So what we have to do is wake up, get rid of the slime balls out of who are taking control of our society, and actually produce a coherent and controlled interface with these other beings. It's very beneficial for some of them, but it's extremely detrimental for us. Now, the sort of prime directive that we're dealing with, where some ETs, I mean, the whole nuclear thing at Rendlesham Forest UFO events, the biggest stockpile of nuclear weapons were all neutralized by these ETs. In other words, and it happened with the Russians as well. In other words, in December 1980, the Russian nuclear deterrent went to zero, and the British and American nuclear deterrent went to zero. Now, what they're saying is, if you want to blow yourselves up, that's fine. But you're not going to have these big weapons, and you're not going to blow us up with it. And the same goes to these nuclear power stations and things. So basically, we have to take control. We now know that we have had ET contact. We now know that all these other things are happening. So we have to grow up, and our media and our broadcasting systems are treasonous and treacherous for continuing the deception and for running these most horrendous mind control things against our population. This is treason, this is treachery, and they're going to pay in the end. So they either wake up, start dealing with things now, or face the consequences in the future.
Exactly, Miles. As you know, I was part of the phone hackings. Well, I wasn't part of the phone hacking, but I witnessed it and was used basically to bring in this character who worked for MI6 into the News of the World, and basically he brought the hacking. And then it was blamed on a patsy, and, you know, then this patsy was held up. There's going to be a movie about him. There's been a book about him as a private investigator brought in hacking, not looking that it was MI6 that brought in the hacking. And, of course, I was basically threatened to shut up about it because the press is completely under control. It's not even worth reading because you'll be totally misinformed the whole time.
We share a common connection here because I was at Sky Television when I was trying to blow the whistle on all this. That's when 8 octoform type creatures were accessing in the virtual domain the technology which they use to transmit this stuff. And the same's going on with BBC. There's no difference between any of them. The broadcast systems have switched to a digital Trojan horse technology, which is accessing the consciousness of every single individual listening to it and watching it. So that is Trojan door, backdoor attack on our consciousness and our physical domain. So what we have to do is we have to develop our own technology and shut the door on this Trojan horse, which we're now using.
Yeah, interestingly, I was contacted by ITV to do they're doing a big crime series, and there was one featuring Ian Brady, which is to be broadcast soon.
Ian Brady and all that lot, and the Cray twins, and a lot of that East End gang stuff is all MK Ultra. It's all part of MK Ultra, and Kathy Morgan, who I also interviewed, did an awful lot of the work on that. It's pure MK Ultra population management. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know Brady. I met him 3 times, and this is why I was interviewed. And I went in to. I didn't really bring up. I didn't need to bring up the possibility that he had been controlled. But what I did want to bring up is these people, these serial killers that everybody is so fascinated by. There's no point in being fascinated by them. They're merely people that have opened up to these entities. The Antichrist entities have come in and basically ripped anything that they call it low-hanging fruit, basically women and children, that they can grab hold of. And you can actually see by the way that the killings have taken place that they have the Antichrist in them, because there's things like, you know, the children are made to pose in the sign of the cross. They're buried face down. With Bianchi, the girls were sort of spread-eagled in the middle of the town centre on the grass. That's to traumatize anybody that saw it and to traumatize humanity as well.
The point is, Chris, it's not the individuals doing the murdering and the hacking and all that. It's those features which are in the background.
Yeah.
Which are pulling the puppet strings.
Oh, I know. And what I'm saying is I learned over studying evil over years and years and years that you can see them. You can see basically, you can smell them, because there's always, they're always, which I find interesting, they always are anti-Christ. And it's almost like the war is between them and Christ. And we're just kind of, you know, toys, basically. What they care about is Christ. So you always, when they do things like this, you can see the message, the like 2 fingers sign up to Christ. Like ISIS, for example, the way they persecute Christians, they crucify them, they slit their necks. There's something to do with neck slitting that is an antichrist thing. Maybe it's a throat chakra or something, but they do this kind of thing. And if you study the crimes, for instance, in the Jeremy Bamber shootings, there was a Bible laid out next to the sister, and in the Brady Moores murders, evidence was kept in a prayer book, tucked in a little prayer book. And of course, he played hymns as he was doing the murdering. So you can smell them, really. You know, they don't really.
I mean, during the break, there was the thing about Joseph Atwell. He was here in London talking about his book about 2 years ago, and fascinating. But all of these established religions have been backdoor accessed and are piggybacked by the controllers. And that is the problem. If, however, you take pure spirituality, regardless of your denominational belief system, because that's a mechanism, it's a control mechanism to divert you. We're being constantly diverted away from the true message, using that message often. And so what we have to use is our own individual spirituality and go to source, so to speak, individually, and then that will stop these entities and creatures, and then we can out them from the control structures, and then we can bring this whole society forward.
Do you think that it would be done through joining, to joining in one with Christ? Because that really,
no. The point is that the Christ energy, the so-called Christ. The actual stories about them, I don't want to go into the details, or people are far more skilled in this than I in this subject. But the basic essence of what's talked about and discussed with these religions, this is the whole point. You put the truth into a barrel of lies, and you'll never find it. So the point is that there is the truth and the spirituality there. It's up to us to find it and to adopt that true higher spirituality. That is the divine. That is the thing which is fantastic. That's the thing which is the whole point of the original teachings. What we've got is a barrel of lies and deception. So we have to navigate that barrel of lies somehow and find the truth and out the truth and expose those lies. And that is our task. That's what we've got to do.
But in the Bible, didn't Christ say, "I am the gate," which I believed that that meant that he is the escape away from this. Yes, I haven't read the Bible. You have. I mean, I've seen it. I took the decision personally not to confirm my my connection with these bogus. I mean, coming from Northern Ireland, it's such a treachery of deception and control, and it's been used as a mechanism to distract and but it isn't because I grew up in an orphanage that was controlled by the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church, they I think they've been infiltrated pretty much so, because what they do.
This is the whole point. If you read Atwell's work, that the whole point of Christianity was hijacked at the very start, but the whole point of the further back it's the same thing. These
I think
systems have been hijacked.
We're going to. Can you stay with us?
Yeah.
Well, that went on for so long, didn't it? Miles, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still with you.
Oh, great. So it's Christine Joanna Hart, journalist and author, interviewing Miles Johnston, who is the filmmaker of the Basis series. We're just discussing Mr. Stephen Greer, the UFO expert, and what he and the children's author Darren Shan are trying to do is trying to call together a kind of revolution within, where we don't find ourselves attacked by darker sources coming from the sky, but they grow up inside us, like they seed inside us and kind of grow up inside us by us, basically moving out of the way. So continue on, Mars, what you were saying. It was interesting.
Well, basically, I have to bring the black goo in. The thing about this is that Harold Klaus Vela, who's a co-author to that book I mentioned earlier with Cara St. Luby, one of the main things which happened here was the Falklands War, which didn't happen here. It happened down in the South Atlantic. But the Brits basically were after a thing called a sentient fluid, which it turns out the Nazis had already been dealing with before in the 1930s. Because one of the big things which a lot of people don't know was going on in that period of time was a pursuit of ancient technology from our ancestors before whatever great catastrophe happened, and that's basically known as the descent of Atlantis. Now, Stuart Swerdlow also mentioned this, but also a Brit called John Irwin was involved with a secret British military team, or rather, it was an embedded team within the British military in the Middle East in the late 1950s. And what they were after was coded data banks from our ancestors. Now, it's interesting that Stuart Swerdlow, only 3 or 4 weeks ago when he was here in London, alluded to this, that the Montauk base gained access to pyramids, which brought them Atlantean technology. Now, the whole point, according to Chris Thomas, another one of the base's interviewees, is that the whole reason why Atlantis was basically shut down was because they started to develop transgenic beings. That's to say, they started to develop biologically and mathematically incompatible life forms to this reality. Now, that's one way of putting it. Other people would say monsters or creatures which are literally are not meant to mathematically exist. It introduces errors into the life force stream by producing these incompatible life forms, and then it also allows access to our reality and our existence and our life stream, creatures from other incompatible dimensions and realities, which basically starts to degrade and cause damage to the actual existence that we have here. As a result of that, Atlantis had to be completely destroyed. Now, what's happening now is, and I use the word now advisedly, is that we're doing the same thing. It turns out when one of the fundamental things in the Basis Project was like 20 years ago, information came out that the British were creating or building or making what's called program-generated life forms. They, in other words, were aliens, right? They were based on an ET type of frame because essentially we were developing our own versions of the Greys. Now, a totally left field information has come to across my desk, so to speak, that in the bases near Boscombe Down, and that's all crop circle country, the lovely Berkshire and Wiltshire underground bases, and in Brecon Beacons in Wales, there have been horrific designs of creatures for use off-planet and in the off-world bases, the lunar bases. So in one or two simple words, our involvement with despicable transgenic and transhumanization and cyborg-related technologies has been going on, and for use in the off-world bases and on the Moon and Mars. One of the problems about our physical biological bodies is that once we start to venture outside the biogenic field created by the Earth's life force, our biological structures will degrade. And that is one of the things which happens, which is designed at the dimensional gate at West Ken at Long Barrow. A lot of people go to this thing off the A4 opposite Silbury Hill, and it's a grave and all that sort of stuff. Well, it's an existing gate, and there are a number of gates in the Vale of Pewsey, and that's why there are a number of very prominent Illuminati houses or homes or mansions in that area. And that's what happens when some of these circle makers go out and make these crop circles. They meet these other beings. So this is the whole point. The people making the crop circles are actually encountering the real deal, right? So the point about this is that we are doing the same mistakes as happened with Atlantis. And if we continue to do that, the only way is down. The only way is a reset. The biological integrity, the life force of the beings of this planet, this existence, this living spaceship. We're basically on a spaceship, a survival vessel. And if that is compromised, this planet, the source of life on this planet, will heal itself. Now basically we either are part of the solution or we're part of the problem. So it's up to us, now that we know that our mainstream media and all our fundamental controlling structures are being compromised. We are the many and they are the few, and we have to take corrective measures to solve this problem in a positive way or face deletion. And that's what basically the British intelligence officer Peter Paget, retiring, age 69, explained to us in Warminster at the end of August. We do not have much now left. So whatever now we've got, it's time that we start sorting this problem out and getting it sorted out in proper order very quickly.
You do sound, even though you don't read the Bible, Miles, you do sound quite biblical, because it does say, if the words of Jesus Christ were, if you're not with me, then you're against me. And
sorry, did you say George Bush or Jesus Christ?
Jesus Christ, of course.
I think George Bush might have used those same words.
But it's true, isn't it? If you're not actively going to do something, then you are going to be part of the problem, really. So you're right. We have to, as you were saying, actively do something.
Well, that's what the black goo explained to a certain gentleman in Iran. This black goo, which I started to explain about the Falklands, was that this is this sentient fluid which is found in rocks which came down as meteors, and also is found in the fundamental living fluid which we call oil, crude oil. This stuff has explained to individuals who've encountered it that it's here to clean up our mess. And we're making a heck of a mess of this planet. Now, when we say we, it is we. We are giving our permissions away by allowing these horrendous individuals who've taken control of these major corporations to kill everything on this planet. And they're pushing us into a cyborg future. We either have a future as a cyborg under the control of these creatures, or we have a high spiritual domain here which can lead into a whole realm of different universes in a positive and an enlightening manner. So we have to face this problem down and solve it. It killed 42 Marconi scientists when these people were ordered to weaponize this stuff. It killed them, and that's a record. That's official.
I think what we can do, Miles, certainly mothers can start, keeping an eye on what their children are reading and doing in schools. I think it'd be good to get this author, Darren Shan, kicked out of the syllabus. I can't.
Well, the thing is, it's whoever put her on that syllabus. I mean, it's not. Don't shoot the messenger. Hello?
How do you mean, Miles? Don't shoot the messenger.
Okay, that author. I mean, that book may be distasteful and other sorts of things. It's horrendous.
He must know what he's doing. There's
yes,
loads.
But whoever sanctioned that. This is the same thing about Ofcom in the United Kingdom. Ofcom is controlling all broadcasting, and they are after individual creativity. They're killing it. This has been a pattern that's been going on for at least 30 to 40 years. I was involved with pirate radio. The one thing we were doing was ingenuity. We're bringing choice to people, and they killed it. They shut it all down, and they've done this right across the board. Watching digital television now in Britain, British television used to be, we think it was the greatest in the world. It's one of the most pompous things you can, it's ridiculous. British television, blah, blah, blah. Save the BBC. BBC's been sanctioning and covering up some of the most horrendous crimes imaginable over 40 to 50 years. And they're mainstream entertainers they've sanctioned on screen, and who have been positively vetted time and time again to be involved with our leaders and our great and wonderful high people, being involved in the most despicable, horrendous crimes. And now there's a huge fight back to say, oh, this didn't happen. I mean, it's a scandal. And this is right in front of us as we talk at this moment.
Who do you think would have said it was okay to... I had a conversation with the head of English, and I pointed out these gory bits, these homoerotic bits, these paedophile bits, and of course, the end, the bad message become a serial killer because you get, you know, these little bits of psychic powers from it. And she was like, it's a really good book. It encourages children to read. And if you have a problem, you know, basically shut up, really, you know.
Well, basically, that's the point. A lot of these individuals have been taken over. They're controlled. And the children are the people who will be able to see them. The children will see these creatures who are puppeting. I mean, was that individual that you were talking to a member of an organization called Common Purpose, for instance?
I don't know.
mean, this is one of the subliminal infestations of society and industry and all forms of controlling structures, local councils, ruling bodies of schools, police forces, politicians, parties. All the parties are controlled essentially by the same organization. And what the heck does that controls that?
It's a shame that this kind of thing started off. I started off with the Harry Potter stuff, and it was, oh, that's okay. Then it's kind of grown from there, and that's, you know, encouraging the occult. And, you know, I put a Harry Potter film on for my son when he was about 7, and there was started off by a dead body, and I just turned it off immediately. But, you know, that kicked it off, and now it's sort of grown from there. And, you know,
well, I think knowing about this is important. Embracing it and taking it into your heart is a totally different thing. I think that the children should know about it. They should be aware of these things in the same way that you should be aware that fire, if you put your hand on it, you'll get burnt. But they shouldn't be embraced as a wonderful thing. But nowhere in my view, we should not be telling our children that we live in fairyland. We've got the most despotic and most evil people hounding civilized people out of their homes in the Middle East to basically invade Europe at the moment. I mean, it's a massive. Everybody involved here is suffering. It's somebody is pushing that. Those individuals destroying those societies. I mean, one of the things which Irwin reflected on was in the 1950s, the Lebanon was a fantastic, wonderful, free and civilized country. And over the years, it's been bombed to hell, and it's a complete disaster. And now it's happening all across the Middle East, these wonderful countries with wonderful, fine peoples, civilized before there was any civilization in Europe. And whatever came through Europe has gone into the United States and the Americas and destroyed ancient history on a scale that makes this IBIS, or whatever you call it, whatever name you want to call it today or tomorrow or next week, this destruction that they're doing is irrelevant in comparison to the mass destruction of ancient artifacts and histories in North American continent and then subsequently the South American continent. We've got a problem that infests amongst our civilization, and we have to identify that problem and eradicate it, completely eradicate it, delete it from existence. It's got no place here. It must be taken out completely so that the original peoples of this planet can live in a wonderful place in harmony, respecting each of our differences and abilities and making the best out of these things and not the worst.
And why do you think that there's certain human beings that actually want this, that there's certain... What's the difference between someone like you, for instance, and someone like me who doesn't want them to grow stronger, who doesn't want them to...
Because they're not human. That's the point. This is the whole point that goes back to that we have got a predator within us. But
Miles, there are some human beings who welcome them, you know, who enjoy them, who want them. Obviously, clearly.
Well, this is the point. These are what we call the expendable second degrees. These are the people who are given power. These are the people given riches and all sorts of things, and they go through revolting rituals to sort of short circuit their ascendance to a higher plane. I mean, the joke about our prime minister it's disgusting that. Which, if people are aware of what was said, what he did, and this is an
No,
elite bunch.
can you go over that, Miles, for American?
Well, very simply, and it has to be said, and it was correctly pointed out on a London talk show, that this particular insult was used by an American senator against another American senator about 20 years ago. Basically, the prime minister in a secret society, whilst he was at university, put his private member into the mouth of a of a severed head of a pig. Now, the thing about that is, I'm not entirely sure whether that actually happened. I think that's actually a coded insult within a certain group to say that. But we're talking about our prime minister. Every time you see him, you know that he's stuck his thing inside a pig's mouth, dead pig's mouth. I mean, that is disgusting. But the point is, the delivery of the insult by the people within that group probably are saying something quite different. And we have to look at these things very carefully. But that's the kind of thing, I'm sure there's all sorts of horrendous things which I'm sure experts much bigger than me with much greater knowledge can explain in much detail. They go through rituals of disgusting and despicable nature. And this is what Jimmy Savile was doing with these dead bodies. He was actually doing an energy exchange. And Jimmy Savile is a disc jockey who fronted the BBC's pop music program from the very start in the 1960s, was involved with the highest levels of society, right up into royalty to prime ministers, and has an intricate link with MK Ultra and the child killings and all sorts of things. He was essentially the child catcher for the elite. There's 140,000 children go missing in Great Britain every year, and most of them aren't. A lot of them are returned or found, but the great vast number of them are used in these rituals, which is a massive cover-up in British society, because they need something from these human children, as I mentioned earlier. But there's a biological substance made in the pineal gland that these creatures need to sustain their biological integrity in our reality. And so we need to simply restrict that supply to these creatures and then simply let them die as they should have a long, long, long time ago, and let us as a civilization in our own domain and our own existence live in a much more positive and welcoming world. But we have got predators. We got to realize that. We got to face them, or die, or be taken over.
So you're saying we should wake up and do something. I was, as well as these people that belongs to Freemasons, etc. What about your average person who, lives a sort of normal life, as they say, and, thinks that this is all there is and just concentrates on house prices and dinner parties? And I live in an area that's very, very like that, and you bring up anything that's off the kind of straight road, they dismiss it as, doesn't exist. What do you think of people like that? Because there's a whole load of them, and, basically they do keep the others who want to talk out about things. They keep them quiet, don't they? Because they almost police them. Oh, if you talk about that, you're mad and we'll put you over there. That kind of...
Yes, well, essentially, everybody's got their mechanism for not doing anything. Okay, you've got your cocktail parties and dinner parties. I mean, I don't know what dinner parties you're going to, but the cocktail parties I go to, they're all a rage, Everybody's talking about this stuff. But, I mean, some people like Premiership football. Again, that's a myopic opiate to shut people's down. Okay, you might not like soccer or football, but then you go after rugby, or cricket or baseball. These mechanisms have all been designed so that individual demographic groups within society will essentially not pay attention to what's going on. They're more concerned with the repeat of a ritual on a piece of grass where people stand around and basically score a set of points one way or another, doing one other thing or other. It's irrelevant, really, but it keeps them totally occupied and transformed. People like tennis or golf or whatever it is. Other people like collecting stamps or looking at trains. It's a way that we keep ourselves distracted, because our lives are made so painful that the only pleasure we get is a bit of escapism with some kind of thing which gives us a reassurance that things are okay. Well, things aren't okay. And we've got to start paying attention, protect our children, give them the future so they can do the changes which are needed urgently before we end up as a bunch of cyborgs, because that's where we're headed. These implants, the artificial intelligence that we're handing things over to is Trojan horse. It's being donated to us. It's being gifted to us.
Why do you think, Miles, that our lives have been made painful? How did they make our lives painful that we need things like,
Well,
TV?
we don't need these things. It's just basically carrot and stick. It's very simple. It's population management. And the whole thing about the Christianity thing that Atwell talks about, that was a mechanism, believe in the one God or we'll burn you at the stake very slowly. There's a sort of there's a carrot and stick approach to believing. St. Patrick was sent over to Ireland to beat and burn the children in Ireland so that the Irish church, which was originally the original Celtic, more spiritual so-called Christian church, which had a higher knowledge and a higher spiritual connection with the Americas already for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, with the ancient civilizations in the West, which we now call the United States and South America. St. Patrick was sent over and he burned the firstborns, the children of every town across Ireland. And when he got sick and tired doing that, he went back to the Pope in Rome and says, look, I can't do this anymore. And he was told, you go back there, you keep burning, you keep killing until they submit to the rule of the Church of Rome. This has nothing to do with Christian or Christ spirituality. It's to do with domination, control, and the destruction of the higher creative thoughts and higher spirituality of our civilization. And that is fundamental to this predator, this artificial intelligence, which has come here and propagates, as it seems, through the galaxies. We've got to draw the buck stops here. We have to stop it here in this domain and fight back and create a positive and more spiritually enlightened place with sensible precautions, and not go off and doolally new age spiritual, somebody else will do it and it'll all be somebody else that'll do something and not us. We've got to take control of our own civilization and our own planet and our own lives, and not outsource it to a predator which is killing us slowly.
Yes, Mars. Well said. Actually, well said. I think as well. I think a lot of the time we have to concentrate on survival because the economy has been made really bad.
Yes,
house
that's all been
prices
designed. We've been expecting this big crash about once every 2 or 3 weeks.
I think we're going to break. Will you stay with us for the last 20 minutes?
Yeah, I'll stay, and then I'll jump in the car and hightail it too.
Thank you.
Okay.
What are we doing live? There goes an eternity.
Miles, hi. Are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you. That's like an old cart stopping. It's in the broadcast days, when I used to be a wireless broadcaster pirate, we had a thing called NAB carts, which were continuous loop cassette things, a bit like an 8-track cartridge. And of course, nobody knows what that is anymore, so I don't even know why I said it. But if they weren't recorded right, when they come round to the next loop, it plays the first bit of the next song or the next commercial, and it just ends like that. But I'm sure that's an MP4 somewhere, an MP3.
Oh, right. I think it was me, actually, Mars. For some reason, my microphone turned itself off, so I was like a little bit stuck. But that
you should
goes
turn
on
your
for
mic off when you're
ages.
not near it, because this is one of the problems about this. People start vacuum cleaners and ruin things.
I'll go to the loo or something.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I came back, I went outside for a walk, and I came back and it was still playing. Those adverts go on. Luckily, the guy's got a lovely accent, or I would have been asleep. Gosh,
Yeah, freedomslipsradio.com. I have to
Isn't
smoke
it lovely?
enough. I had enough.
I love American accents. I love going there. I'm like, wow, I'm like a kid in a candy store. Oh, I love America. Fantastic place. So we're stuck
Revolution
here.
Radio is fantastic. It's a great opportunity. This and the people who do it are fantastic. Lorian and all that. I'll be seeing Lorian I think in Phoenix early next year.
Oh, what is she doing? A UFO thing?
Lorraine Fenton does. She was appearing at my conference this year, but we had, shall we say, rather well-chosen computer problems at the conference at the UFO at the Basis Project conference in Marlborough, St. John's on the hill, big theatre there, very nice, and we weren't going to be guaranteed a computer thing, so we couldn't do her show. Revolution Radio should have been her show on Revolution Radio should have been broadcast from there, but wasn't. So we missed
That's
it.
a shame. Oh,
We couldn't guarantee it.
Huh. Anyway, we're going to go back to talking about how evil is taking control of the planet, and we've got
Well, it
20
would like
minutes.
to take control of the planet. It's up to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I was just talking about people that, don't acknowledge any spiritual reality, and they go and live their lives, and they're focused on, the economy or politics, and really they have to wake up, don't they, Miles? And they have to start looking. I mean, I was interviewed by the ITV on a subject that should have been spiritual. They should have looked at evil itself. It was on Ian Brady, the Moors murderer. It's to go out soon. And they had me filming up at the studio at Gray's Inn Road for, God, I was up there for about 4 hours. And all they were concerned about was, what Brady ate for his lunch and what he was wearing and was he good looking. And when I talked about, these creatures coming inside men like that, and it's always like with Bianchi and Brady, it's always like when they're, when they are 25, they're basically kids themselves, really, that this takes place, what happens to them. And she said afterwards, oh, we'll cut that. That's too wacky. She said it all got a bit David Icke.
It seems to be perfectly okay to murder, massacre, and ritually kill children, but for God's sake, don't talk about things that David Icke might talk about. That's good, isn't it? That's true mainstream.
It is true mainstream. And I said, look, it's not really wacky, is it? Think about it. Where are you going to go when you die? Off to wacky world. And she said, well, I've had some horrible things happen. She said my typewriter, her computer typed itself or something. It started typing an X over and over again, and her printer started printing out weird stuff. And she said, I'm starting to get a bit afraid. And I said, well, if you...
but this is the point. This computer technology is backdoor.
Yeah,
it's Trojan. Now the point is that the intelligence agencies and the New World Order nutters, because they're all nutters, have all been completely manipulated. The NSA, the NSA, the Russians, everybody is bugging everybody else's telecommunications links. Everybody is spying at everybody else, so that and there's so much information there that no human can possibly analyze it. So what they do is they hand over all this surveillance stuff with everybody's records, details, and faces, everything, and satellite location, everything. They all hand it over to an artificial intelligence in a technology that they got from aliens. Our computer technology uses basically a two-state message signal. It's either on or off. But we were developing a technology ourselves before we were sidelined into this restricted bit set type of communication, because virtually nobody in the engineering field has a clue about scalar technology and scalar signals and where they can go and how they can be accessed. And what we need to develop is a form of communication which does not use a 2-bit square wave. We've got to have a technology which fundamentally is going almost back to the analog sinusoidal type of signal, but in a different way. Obviously, the analog signal degrades, and the digital technology is very, very good. It's very, it's got huge advances that we've got with it, but it's sidelining us. We already have telepathy. We already have all these higher senses, but these idiots want to put these chips into our skulls, and so we can actually talk with a hive mind internet inside our heads. This is the way things are going. It's ridiculous.
So the average person in the street, really, what they can do is get more spiritual. I mean, they could pick up the Bible. They could.
Well,
They
but
could.
yes, that's the
Yeah.
problem about this. When you say, "Oh, get more spiritual," the existing mechanisms to get you more spiritual have already been compromised. Like, I mean, people had Christianity, the various religions, all the various types of basic religion that we know of, Muslim, uh, Hindu, all those, right? The thing is, they've been hijacked. So then people started thinking, oh, well, there must be something else. So they came up with this other spiritual thinking, and then that was hijacked. That was called the New Age movement. The New Age movement is happy go slappy land, right? Hey, chill out, man. And so if all, wherever, every time we take a step that we think we're going in the right direction, they've already second guessed what we're going to do, and they've already hijacked it. What we have to do is double guess and do a double step, not a single step. And that means we've got to start developing our own forms of computer technology which do not use the two-step signal system, and develop a tertiary step, more a different type of system, a signal. Then we will have more control over that than they do. Because right now, all of the intelligence agencies, all of the main governments of the world have been hijacked, using hijacked technology, Trojan door technology, and they're handing over full control of everything on this planet to a Trojan horse technology. It's nuts. It's crazy.
But also individually, I think we can do things like praying. We can do things like, have you heard Steve Gregg, The Narrow Path? That's a good, he's got a good website with, you can pick just different readings, and he explains the ins and outs of the Bible without prejudice. And, there are some people out there that are truly, truly spiritual, that aren't,
Yes, it's the spiritual side, not the myopic, do what you're told religious side.
Yeah,
It's the essence of these wonderful religions to bring you to higher states of creativity and intuition, and live the beautiful life and communicate. You were talking about life with the trees. You out with the trees. These trees can communicate with us. They can tell us things. If you're empathic and if you switch on all the senses which we're actually born with, and these new children, these wonderful indigo children, or whatever you want to call them, are all plugging into this. And there is this wonderful higher world of perception and existence. The idea is to plug into that, get into that, and don't get sidetracked by organized, deceptive, and hijacked old ways of thinking.
Yeah, exactly, Miles. Well said. I do always go to. I tried to bring you there, didn't I, Miles? But you got sidetracked. But
you mean I put petrol into a diesel engine?
No, we met eventually. Obviously, we had dinner, we had lunch at that lovely, and thank you for lunch. It was superb. But I was trying to lure you.
Vicky, very, very alert to the things that we were talking about that day. About Greer.
And I was trying to lure you into Kew Gardens, because if you, leave out the greenhouses and go around the back, they've actually planted little forests, and you go through a forest of Californian redwoods, which are just amazing, and they're massive. And you walk through that forest, and there's no dogs, there's no danger from anything, because it's completely walled off, and you have to become a member. And the trees, there's Californian nutmegs. It's just absolutely amazing, and you can feel the spirituality is just drenched in it. And I go there every day and just lay on the floor and look up at the trees and touch them and just let it wash over me. And it's so cleansing. It's really, really amazing.
That's the wonderful thing about and this is why I love the books, The Ringing Cedars of Russia, which I gather was written by the KGB. As we well know, everything was invented by Russian and KGB technology. It is much better than all other technology we understand. Who cares? It's a great set of books. But these higher spirituality of nature, the intelligence which is in the life itself, the biology, this biogenic field that we live in, this, you tune into that and bring that into your existence, and that will help. That will
Yeah,
balance.
it helped me wash out the Greer stuff. It really did. I just felt
I'm sorry to
completely
say all this
cleansed.
about Greer. Greer's started out, I'm convinced, with positive intentions.
I think he
It's
did,
just,
yeah.
but I'm afraid, and there's another main researcher here in this country called Richard D. Hall, and he's done the same arrogant ego thing. Greer thought he could lecture the head of the CIA and tell the head of the CIA about UFOs. What contemptible ego stupidity that he think, oh, he would know and the head of the CIA wouldn't. I mean, what kind of a stupid idiot is that? It's just ridiculous.
I think he has gone a bit ego. He just looked kind of just a normal guy in a suit, and he's gone very sexed up. I mean, he looks like amazing. He does look very sexy. He's got this, tight white t-shirt with bulging muscles, and his jeans were so tight. I mean, he's a big man. I couldn't take my eyes off him, really. He was just like, really looked pretty hot. So he's changed in that way. And I didn't know he was out sitting next to crop circles. That was a revelation for me.
This all started in the 90s. This is the thing about the crop circles. There's a very, very good book about they call the Mirage Men. And for instance, this recent thing in Mexico with Jaime Maussan. Jaime Maussan was totally taken for a ride with these Roswell slides, these two slides, or I think it was two slides, of a dead alien Gray. Wow. In a glass case in a museum in Roswell. I mean, there's been a film that's not been allowed to be broadcast, and it was shown on in a cinema and a film festival only about 3 weeks ago. And there's a British filmmaker called, I think, Simon. Oh, I don't have the thing. I wish I had it. But there's a British filmmaker, and he was able to get round into the back door of what was going on with that whole thing. That alien Gray thing that hoodwinked the great and the good, and in a fiasco in Mexico City in, I think it was May this year, was a setup by the same people who've been faking crop circles. I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that some of the individuals involved with that, the sort of so-called Mirage Men, he wrote the book Mirage Men and the film Mirage Men, were behind. In other words, British intelligence was behind this farce of these slides, because lo and behold, once Jaime Maussan spent his money and got his humiliation, a much sharper picture suddenly emerged to show that this being was not an 8-fingered alien. It was a double exposed shaky picture taken from the original picture. The thing was a total setup, which is why the science, once that thing, it's the same happened with Ray Santilli. He sold us a pup. He sold us a pup about 3 times over. And if Santilli can do that, the best of luck to him. But the point is, it seems strange that in America, Jaime, who's already been shown to have, at best, wishful, naive thinking on some of these things, and that's being very kind. The American UFO conferences are stuck on Roswell. Most of the British UFO conferences can't get past Bentwaters. But what happened was that a British intelligence did release this thing with Peter Paget, a disclosure in front of a restricted number of people, had to be under 150, that the whole UFO things are real, and it's a highly complex scenario with a whole pile of different agendas and races and beings and all sorts of things going on, and it's real. And we've got to get up to speed on this. But there seems to be a distancing between the British intelligence stance on the ET situation and what the American situation is. The American situation seems to be going on with this deadbeat rerun of old stuff. There's not a single conference in the States now which actually tells us anything new, and it's reinforcing anybody who's in this field in the United States up a back alley.
And we're just lastly, before I think the show's going to end in a minute, Miles, and thank you for being my awesome guest. Are the ET, what's the relationship to ET and the fallen angels? I mean, where are they? Where are the fallen angels in this?
The whole lot are mixed up in the same thing. They're not extraterrestrial. ET, extraterrestrial, is another distraction. It focuses you on a 3-dimensional worldview with time, right? ET, external, extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial. Therefore, it locks you into the speed of light farce. I mean, CSETI, the real CSETI, has been given 100 million by the Russians. The only way to do this kind of communication is using scalar technology, not vector technology.
So basically, they are the fallen angels.
No, let's not throw out. We're dealing with a complicated situation. Who are the fallen angels? We only know that because what we're told in various written scripts and Bibles and things like that. And who's been hijacking all that for the last 3 to 4, 7 or 8,000 years? We just don't know. We've got to be very careful and very discerning. We've got to look at this things completely with a fresh look and start basically with a clean board on this whole thing. There are interdimensional, extra-dimensional, and extraterrestrial civilizations and beings which are coming here in a variety of forms and ways. We have to be discerning, but what we have to do is keep this planet, the boundaries. This is our place. We live here, and there are other dimensional entities and beings which live here with us and have been here a lot longer than we have. We have to respect their domains and then start with a new approach in this whole thing.
Thank you, Mars, very much, and I'll see you guys next week.